Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to TFT09 for T21 aspirants. We are doing paper 1 and we have completed topics 1 and 2, which was sociology the discipline and sociology of science. We are going to begin a new topic today, which is topic 3, research methods and analysis. It has 3 subtopics. First one is qualitative and quantitative methods. Second is techniques of data collection. Third one is various concepts like variables, sampling, hypothesis, reliability and validity. We will be doing subtopic A today. You will follow a mixed approach. Because this topic consists of understanding the concepts as well as sort of memorization. And because you cannot start memorizing immediately, that is without having a sound backup of understanding or a base of understanding of the different concepts, therefore you will first start with Haralambous and Holborn, that is the blue book. There is a chapter on methodology, and secondly you will glance through Nathan Sangwan also chapter 3, which is research methods. If any of you does not have this book, the blue book, please download it. The PDF is available, and I don't remember the edition, but any edition of this book will do. There is one thing which has to be taken care of, that the subject matter or whatever we are going to study in this particular topic is slightly leaning towards economics, the concepts of economics and statistics. So if you have had a previous understanding or previously you have studied it in school or college, you will be in a better position to understand this topic. But even if you haven't, please, you do not get disheartened. You need to give yourself some time, and at least twice you have to read it. A quick recap. We have done methodology or the concept of methodology in scientific or any social science research. We know that it consists of research methods and the philosophies underlying it. The philosophies by which we mean the theoretical strands. We have read about positivist and non-positivist theories. And now we are going to do the research methods. What is the purpose of methodology? Methodology, the aim is to establish accepted ways of getting the best possible data. That means we want to have a data of the social world, okay? And not only do we need this, but we want to establish accepted ways. Accepted means kind of universal. If I use a particular method here in India, then another sociologist must be using same method in, let's say, US or UK, anywhere. Now, research methods are divided into 2 types. The first one is quantitative methods, which are numerical and they deal with statistical data. On the other hand, other one is qualitative data, which is mostly used in the study of human society, and it consists of non-numerical data, for example, words. What is numerical statistical data? The data which is found in various reports or in journals. You may see tabular form, tabular representation of data, histogram, graphs, pie charts. All these are numerical or statistical data. But when you are explaining something in words, descriptive it is, then it will be known as a qualitative data. Mostly in quantitative data, you have to interpret that particular data which is given in the form of numerical data. But here the interpretation part will be lesser as compared to the quantitative data. Now, the first topic or the first concept that we are going to study, that we have already studied before, is quantitative methodology. Okay. Now here the underlying philosophy is positivism. Now this was started by Comte, if you remember, and it was also supported by Durkheim. They both suggested that sociology or study of society would be scientific. According to positivism, there are objective social facts about the social world, and these facts can be expressed in statistics. These facts are not influenced by the researcher's opinions, that is their subjective viewpoint, or their beliefs about right and wrong, which are known as values, and are therefore value free. Researchers can look for correlations. It is a statistical term. Here what happens, that when two or more things they tend to occur together, then we form a pattern that okay, because of this happened. Or always whenever there is a suicide, then it might be related to the, let's say, youth. This is just a hypothesis. Okay, so when you notice that two things are occurring simultaneously, then you derive or arrive at a conclusion, and thus a pattern is formed. Now another point is multivariate analysis. Okay, before that, what happens when we form a correlation? Let's say we know that two things are happening together, then is there a relation? Is A always leading to B? So there is a causal relationship, right? That means one thing causing another, and this can be elaborated here in multivariate analysis. Here what happened, that we are going for multiple causes, and accordingly we give priority to different causes, and with the help of this analysis we can find the true causes. For example, we observe that there are 6 causes which are leading to C. Then we will go for a priority based analysis, and then finally we will reach to that final or true cause. It is also possible to discover laws of human behavior. You remember we were talking about framing or formulating laws in positivism. So the main aim is to come up with certain laws which are universal and causes of behavior which are true for all humans everywhere and throughout history. So universality is the key. We also remember about external stimuli. That means an external force. Just like that apple, it was under the force of gravity. Similarly, in society, the positivists, they assume that there is an external force, external societal force, which causes actions to be done. They say that human behavior is shaped by external stimuli, that is things that happen to us, rather than internal stimuli, that is what goes on in the human mind. The external word is important here. Also the last point which is important, empirical, you must be remembering this word. The positivists said that to be scientific, one should only study what one can observe. It is unscientific to study people's emotions, meanings or motives which are internal to the unobservable mind, right? Very important. Now, what happens in scientific experiments or scientific research? Experiments form a major component of research, and you must have done or conducted experiments in school, colleges. So many sciences, they make use of experiments. What happens in experiments? In experiments, theories can be tested in precise conditions. This is the most important condition there. Often in a laboratory. So we used to go to labs. This laboratory experiment, this is conducted by the researcher who controls the environment or controls all the conditions. So here the first point is that it takes place in a laboratory and under controlled conditions. Then what happens? The researcher develops a hypothesis, a prediction of what will be found. That means he already knows what is going to be the result, but he is conducting the experiment simply to confirm. Now, there are two kinds of variables in experiments. One is the independent variable and the other is the dependent variable. Variable is anything which changes, for example, A, B, C, or if you have heard PV is equal to nRT, then PV, RT, these are variables. Okay. Now, here what happens? Let's say if I say A is equal to B by C, then what happens? Here A is the dependent variable and B and C are independent. What does this mean? It means that A will increase if I increase the value of B. That means A is depending upon the value of B. Okay. And what happens when I increase C? When C is increasing, then A will decrease. Okay. So A is directly proportional to B and A is inversely proportional to C. So here this is an independent variable, this is an independent variable, these two are, or A is the dependent variable. So this is what happens in society also, social experiments also. Now in science it is very easy to separate these variables, that means A, B and C, but it is not so in social experiments, you should remember. For example, if you remember that event or the correlation that we mentioned, that poverty and beggary we were talking about in one of the lectures, and we said that there is a plurality of cause. So whether poverty is depending on beggary or beggary is depending on poverty, we do not know. That means it is difficult to identify the independent variable here and the dependent variable. Poverty can be a dependent variable, like if poverty is depending on beggary, and beggary can be a dependent variable if beggary is depending on poverty. So this is the difficulty which a social scientist faces. In a scientific experiment, these two can be separated, these two can be isolated, and there is no dependency or there is no plurality of cause. That means the dependent variable will always remain the dependent, independent will remain the independent. Now what do we understand by control in an experiment? This word that I mentioned, what do we understand by control? Here what happens, that when the researcher is controlling the experiment, then everything is held constant. For example, A is 7, this is something like that, it is there. Let's say this one. So it is held constant, but when I start conducting the experiment, then I will start changing the values. That means one independent variable, either this one or this one, it will keep on changing. So if A is 7 and B I put it as 15, that what will be the value of C? Like that it will be done. The last point is replication, that means repetition or reproduction of the results. So reproduction of results mean if I conduct this experiment, then I will get the same result, and if you conduct this experiment, you will get that same result only. There will be no difference in results. So we learned about scientific research and how experiments play an important role in finding scientific concepts or confirming scientific basics. Now what happens when sociology comes into picture? Can we conduct sociological experiments in labs? They rarely use, the sociologists, they rarely use laboratory experiments because laboratories are unnatural settings and people may not behave normally. If you know that you are under subject to certain experiments and you have to be confined to a room and you have to behave naturally as if you were in your room, how will you behave? Your sleeping pattern will be affected. Maybe your concentration will be affected. Maybe you will get anxious, right? You will get anxiety attacks or something. So we do not know what changes may happen, but these are not regular phenomena. This does not happen when you are sleeping in your room. But when you are asked to sleep in a separate room which is under experimentation, then you will start to behave unnaturally. Another point which goes against sociology and labs is that it is impractical to conduct laboratory experiments on large numbers of people or for long times. There is a capacity, limited capacity to hold experiments, and also we cannot do it for longer time. What about the food? What about the mental health of the people? All these have to be taken care of. So we come to field experiments. Field experiments are those experiments which take place outside the laboratory in natural settings. These are apt for social research. But here, as mentioned earlier, there is a certain difficulty because we cannot control the variables. That means other conditions apart from the human understudy. And what happens? That if those being studied are aware of the experiment, if you know that you are under experiment, okay, under some experimentation, then you are going to change your behavior. You will be more conscious. For example, if it is a reading competition, how many pages you can read, then maybe naturally you would read only 100 pages in a day. But because you are under experimentation, you will do more and then you will read 200 pages. So this is not normal. There was a very important experiment known as the Hawthorne experiments. Please read about it, Google it. And here also what happened, few people were under study and they started behaving normally. Some started doing very well and the others started doing very less. But let's say if I decide that I will not tell them, I will not disclose the people who are under study that they are being experimented or they are being observed, then what happens? Then I am invading their privacy. And this is unethical. So the question of ethics comes when I am studying human beings. Another method which is used to study society or social research, that is the comparative method. Here what happens, that I am conducting an experiment only, but of events that have already taken place. Here I do not create any artificial situation. And what do I study? I study social groups, different times, places, Now, how do I study? I study these social groups, times and places systematically, and I compare it and try to isolate variables. I differentiate them into independent variable, dependent variable, and then I try to form a correlation, causes. I do that same method or that same procedure I follow, but only with things or events that have already taken place. If you are not able to understand these terms like isolation of variables, independent, dependent variables, please do not be frightened, because in the next class we are going to do every topic or every method in detail. Then you will understand what exactly do we mean by this. Today is a general introduction class and you might face certain difficulty. Now, when do we use this method, comparative method? When it is impractical or unethical to use experiments, then we use this comparative method. It has been used before by Durkheim to study suicide. Then Weber, he studied something known as Protestant ethic. You will be studying this later, but you should remember that this is associated with Weber. Then Marx, he studied social change. And all these three, they use the comparative method, because the effects could be seen later and they wanted to know what happened. Okay. So, as I had told before, that when you want to know something that has happened in the present situation, in the present times, you have to go back, and that is what they did. The second method is qualitative methodology. This takes form of words, descriptive. It is more depth, that is and it is a better benchmark or better way of understanding human mind, social world. The interpretivists, they usually advocate the use of qualitative data to interpret social action. Okay. And they emphasize on, remember, meanings as well as motives. Every social action is associated with certain meanings and certain motives of the actors. Now, why do we need to study this? Why do we need to study social action or meanings and motives? Because according to interpretivists, sociology is different from natural science, because it needs to understand the meaningful behavior. Okay. Meaningful behavior of human beings. And for this purpose, we have to imagine the situation from another person's viewpoint. This is known as empathy. You must have heard about this word often, that you need to be empathetic. What does this mean? You have to put yourself in another person's shoes, and you need to understand what he or she might be going through, what he or she might be thinking. And that is what the interpretivists said. They said that people do not simply react to external stimuli. This is held by positivists. The positivists say that there is an external stimuli and under it the human beings react. But the interpretivists, they said that no, they do not simply react. But what do? They try to interpret this stimuli and then they react. This interpretation is important. There is a concept of interpretation here. Human beings, before reacting, they interpret the stimuli, and we as sociologists have to understand that what happens during this interpretation process. What are the meanings and motives associated with this reaction? Thus, this interpretation is not statistical. It is something subjective. Also, this interpretation is not observable. It is not empirical. Now, who was the proponent of interpretivism? Weber, if you remember, known for his theory of social action. He sees sociology as the study of social action or meaningful behavior. He gave the concept of Verstehen, which means understanding, to explain why people behave in particular ways. Our job was to, sociologists had to understand that why people were behaving in different ways. He gave his very famous theory of Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism, and here he tries to understand why the Calvinists, they reinvested their money and became the early capitalists. So here the social action is this reinvesting, and he tried to investigate why people were behaving in particular ways. That means why were they reinvesting. The next theory is of symbolic interactionism, and here they see individuals as possessing a self-concept or image of themselves, and this is shaped through people's actions or people's reactions. When people react to something that I say, then I develop an image of myself. And what does Herbert Blumer, a sociologist, say? He says that if I need to understand the viewpoint of people, why? Because if I am trying to understand someone, then I need to understand his or her viewpoint. And I cannot do this by using statistics. This will not give me an answer. So what methods do I need to do? I will have to go for in-depth interviews. That means I will ask more number of questions to understand the root cause, why he or she is acting in a particular manner. I may also go for participant observation. That means I will go and live among them, and then I will observe why they are acting, why they are doing this, why they are doing that. There is another theory which we are going to study later, but you should now know this name. It is associated with symbolic interactionism. We use this labeling theory to understand the concept of deviance. We give labels to those who deviate or those who do not follow the norms of society. So by giving the labels, we are actually trying to understand the meanings, why they are doing or why they are not following the norms of society. The next theory is phenomenology. It rejects the causal explanations. What is a cause-effect relationship? That means I assume that there is a stimuli. It causes a certain reaction. That's it. This is given by the positivists. You must be remembering typification, right? So that is what classification is. So what do? The phenomenologists, they divide or they classify the social world into various types. For example, they classify whether a particular act is suicide or whether somebody is a criminal. They do this first. This classification is done first, and then they go for judgments. Okay. Now these judgments are dependent on the common sense. For example, when people of a certain community, they say that this person, Mr. XYZ, Miss XYZ, he or she is a criminal, then there is a certain judgment, there is a certain stereotype, we do not know, and it may be also dependent on the common sense. This is how the people of that community make sense of what has happened to that particular person. And I, as sociologist, first I will classify that whether yes, he is a criminal or not. So I will first study the people there. I will study on what basis they are using these judgments, what is the basis for this commonsensical assumption, and then I will classify that yes, so and so person is a criminal. But here this is a very subjective method, because I might say that person is a criminal and you might say that person is not a criminal, right? So there is no causal analysis, there is no causal effect that can be seen. But for the people, for the society, they construct their social reality, they give order and meaning to the social world on the basis of these everyday knowledge or commonsensical explanations. So if a person, a sociologist who follows phenomenology, if he or she is going to study society, then they will have to study common sense, and they cannot do it using a positivist method or quantitative method. They will have to go for a qualitative method. There is a new stream of thought, the feminism or feminist thought. The feminist scholars, they support interpretivist methods. Why? Because they reject the masculine scientific approaches which lack empathy for those being studied. So feminism will be associated with empathy, which is why they opt for interpretivist methods. Here one of the major thinker, one of the major sociologists is Anne Oakley, and she stresses on feminist interviewing, and which includes rapport building. That means before conducting the experiment or before starting the sociological research, first of all the researcher tries to understand the interviewee, they try to relate to one another, and then they start the interviewing. You can say that he or she, the researcher, tries to gain trust of the interviewee. Now what happens in the research process? There are certain factors which affect the selection of area of study. If I am going to start a research, first of all I will select the area which I am going to study, but there are certain factors which affect it. What are these factors? First of all, the values and beliefs of the researcher. For example, one person might see the child issues as important, another person might see development as important, or economy as important, or polity as important. So these priorities or these interests might vary from one researcher to another. Similarly, one researcher, for him or her, globalization, which is of recent importance, might be crucial to this study. She might say that I am going to study globalization and not feminism or class inequality. Also, researchers are influenced by career advancements. This is important because ultimately they will have to go for, let's say, MS, PhD or MPhil or anything. So their career prospects are also in picture. Then we have government policies. Researchers tend to investigate the effects of new initiatives. If the government comes up with any new initiative, then immediately the researcher will want to see whether it will be successful, what will be the effects, what will be the side effects, which sections it is going to affect. So the government policies give a good topic for study. Another point is research funding. These researchers, they are sponsored sometimes, and they do not conduct these researches alone because it is very costly. There is money involved. So if the organization which is funding the research, they say that you please go for study of the slums, or please go for study of some traders, then the researcher might agree, and he or she will say that yes, I will study that particular area. And finally, the researcher's time, money, as well as access to the data, access to the people under study, and how much time he or she has, these will also affect the area of study. If some study is going to take a lot of time and I have less time, then I will opt for some study or area which will require less amount of time. I mentioned ethical issues while conducting field experiments. What are these ethical issues? There are three main ethical issues. The first one is of informed consent. That means when I am going to conduct an experiment, first of all I am going to explain the aim of the experiment, the methods that I am going to use, and if they agree, then only I will conduct the experiment. This is I am doing because I want to avoid invasion of privacy. Also, if I am going to conduct experiments on children, then I will have to take the consent of the parents. But in some experiments, let's say for sex workers, I want to observe them without being seen. Then what do? I might start conducting this experiment without telling them the motive, in a covert ways, covert participant observation. That means I will go and live with them, or I will go as a visitor or anybody, but I will not tell them, because if I tell them, then they will start behaving unnaturally. So in this case there is an ethical issue. The second point is confidentiality. If, for example, I have to conduct an experiment on sexuality and gender, but someone does not want to disclose that he or she is a transgender, okay, then in such cases what do? Whether I should disclose his or her sexuality, or whether I should include it in my research. This is a question, this is an ethical issue. And the last point is that as a sociologist, as a researcher, I need to avoid doing harm, okay, and I need to do good. How do I do it? For example, if I am studying domestic violence, then I have to take care that the psychological trauma is reduced, or I might have to help the victims escape from violence, okay. So these things I have to take care of, right? So there are few terms that you need to know. Start maintaining a diary of important terms, okay. This will be your own glossary. For example, what do we mean by variable? Any quantity which changes in value. What is an independent variable? In the case of sociology, these are the possible causes. And what is a dependent variable? The thing that I am seeking to explain. What is control? In which everything is held constant. Then what is an experiment? In which one independent variable is changed. What is a hypothesis? A prediction of what will be found, okay. These two terms are new, and these two terms you will be coming across more often, so please remember them. First one is reliability. What does it mean? It means whether another researcher using the same procedure would obtain the same results. You remember that another researcher is conducting this experiment using that same procedure which you used, and whether he or she will get the same result is the question of how reliable a method is. What do we mean by validity? Whether the data that I collect will produce a true reflection of social reality, okay. So here the qualitative data is more reliable, it's more valid, right? So I can depend on qualitative data to produce more validity. But in the case of reliability, if I use a quantitative method, then the chances are that the reliability of the experiment will be more, okay. So reliability, validity, here it will be quantitative method, and validity it will be qualitative method. For the source to be followed, as mentioned before, you will be going for Haralambous and Holborn today, the chapter on methodology. Okay, because today your focus will be to understand. The book edition does not matter, and you need to read till the choice of research topic. And tomorrow we will be doing primary sources. So all the best for today's task. Happy learning and